Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Chad here, and today I want to talk to you about some of the things that you need to prepare for before you get to mid-tier rewards cards. Now, we've already covered the cards for beginners, those who want to break into the points and miles game. But before we get to the intermediate or the mid-tier card levels and things that are pertaining to that, there are a couple of pointers I got to give you so that you're going with the best education possible. That way you can take advantage of it as you build your credit arsenal in order to maximize every dollar that you spend. Before we get into it though, please, I'm going to ask that you hit the like button, the share button, subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell to be notified of new content. I have a fast growing channel here and I'm very thankful and I'm very grateful. And also the comments have been great. Actually has some video ideas that I've gotten from the comments and I'm looking forward to start shooting. But without further ado, let's get into it. What we're going to get into, there are going to be certain things that we can actually get through pretty quickly. Then there are others that are going to take a little time. So first things first, before you get to the mid-tier cards, you have to understand sign-up bonuses. Now, some of them were available on the beginner cards. I didn't get into them in detail, but as you get into the mid-tier and the top-level cards that you're going to be using for your credit journey, sign-up bonuses really are super pivotal because every card you're going to want to go for at this level, once you get to mid-tier, is going to have a sign-on bonus, and you have to be strategic about it in order to maximize it and maximize the value of the sign-on bonus because different companies have different rules for sign-on bonuses. Now we're going to also get into cards that have rotating categories or customizable categories. Now, we didn't touch on a lot of categories before in the beginner level because that was basically a bevy of catch-all cards, because what you want is instant gratification, and we really just need that to get the hooks in, to get people concentrating on what it is that they're spending because they're seeing a return from it. But now we're going to talk about rotating categories and also spending categories, period, and how to strategically go about your spending to maximize your rewards based on the cards that you're using. In addition to that, now we're going to start getting into the cards with annual fees. Now, not all mid-tier cards have annual fees, but the great many of them do. They can range anywhere from $95 to $150. But we're not going to cover the cards now, but I just want to have that in your mind that we're going to have to cover that. So that brings us into the next thing, and that's retention offers. Because once again, we want to be strategic and do the annual fees that gives you some room to play after a year of holding the card. How badly do they want to retain you as a customer or a holder of that card? And last but not least, once you get to mid-tier cards, you start seeing card credits. You start seeing ways to offset annual fees that are imposed by the card, and you start seeing more strategic ways to build value in the card to both offset the fee and put money back into your pocket as efficiently as possible. So firstly, sign-on bonuses. Sign-on bonuses are what cards use to rope you in. They use that to get you in the door. And hopefully they can then make money off of you going forward. But sign-on bonuses are always going to be the most lucrative part of getting your credit card. Whether it's beginner tier, mid-tier, or top-tier cards, your sign-on bonuses are going to be your influx of proprietary currency, or even cash back, whether it be actual cash back credits, or cash back in the form of their convertible proprietary currency. For instance, when you look at sign-on bonuses, especially for mid-tier cards and top-tier cards, you're going to find that the percent returned based on the spend that they want is not going to be anywhere near as good as beginner cards. Because at this point now, you're playing with cards where they've established multi-million-dollar relationships with companies that will offer credits on them. So that's the first thing you're going to want to look at. When a sign-on bonus comes up, because you want the highest sign-on bonus possible, It's a matter of deciding what is the best return on spend that I'm going to get for the sign-on bonus. Now, don't get me wrong. Unlike maybe there are mid-tier cards that do like Discover like a percentage match, which I'm sure there are, but they're not as prevalent in the mainstream as the Discover is for a beginner card or those building their credit. Sign-on bonuses will require some sort of spend over a set period of time in order for you to earn the bonus. So whether it's $2,000 in 6 months, whether it's $6,000 in 6 months, whether it's $7,500 in 3 months, it could be $15,000 in 6 months. They vary wildly in order for you to get your bonus. So now you definitely want, especially with high spend, which are normally going to be business cards and upper tier cards, you want to make sure that the spend for the bonus that you're getting makes sense. And if it doesn't, you definitely want to start looking for targeted offers, and you want to reach out to community, people that you have in your credit card community that may be able to help you out. Always look for referrals, and that is pretty much how you strategize your sign-on bonuses. Secondly, annual fees. They're a necessary evil. In most cases in the mid-tier, you're going to have an annual fee. Some cards have $39, some of them have $49, but for the most part, a good, stable, solid mid-tier card that offers you some credits and a robust lineup of benefits like Visa Signature benefits, World Elite MasterCard benefits, it's going to come with an annual fee somewhere in the $95 range. Annual fees are a cost that the credit card company is going to pass on to you, where you basically are paying for membership. Once a year, you are paying to hold this card. And their hopes are that A, you carry a balance, B, you carry a balance, and then there's C, where you carry a balance, which we're not going to do, because then in addition to the interest, the annual fee becomes gimme money, because now you're spending things outside of what you normally spend to offset the annual fee, and now you're carrying a balance, which we do not want. But I just want to let you know, you're going to have to face annual fees, and by this time, you've already dealt with your beginner cards, you understand the shuffle, you've been paying your balance off and in full every month, so we don't have to worry about carrying a balance because we're not going out of our normal spend, and we're going to do everything we can to grab enough value out of some of the cards in the next video I'm going to do to offset the annual fees. Now let's talk rotating categories. Rotating categories are spending categories outlined by the card issuer, where they will actually give you a larger percentage back of cash or a larger percentage of points per dollar spent at a given time. Now, most of the time, those rotating categories will be set by the issuer, and they will come each quarter, January to March, then April, May, June, and you're getting where I'm going with this. And what will happen is that they will be either different retailers or different straight up spend categories. Because like take for instance, Amazon. Amazon is an e-retailer that has so redefined e-commerce that in some cases for most issuers, Amazon in and of itself is a spend category as opposed to just e-commerce or e-retail. They will literally outline Amazon purchases alone because Prime has just sewn itself so much into the everyday of everyone that they can afford to do that and still make plenty of money, which works for them and it works for you, because if you can get a 5, 6, 7% back on your Amazon purchases, that is perfect. But that is the whole point of rotating categories, where you will get elevated value for different categories of different spend as preset by the issuer. Now we're going to talk about retentions. Now I know this is different from what I originally listed, but I just want to make sure I cover all of these. But retentions or retention offers, you'll hear about them when you have a card. Normally you pay an annual fee and that pays your membership to that card for a year. So what happens when you don't want to keep the card? Or what happens when you don't feel like you're getting value? What happens when you just want to know, can I recoup even more value? That is the whole point of retentions. You call your card issuer, you let them know that maybe this card isn't valuable for you as it was a year prior. Maybe it no longer fits your spend horizon. Maybe it doesn't fit your budget. Maybe you just want to have one less annual fee that you lay out because you're scaling back, or maybe you're just curious as to how much they want to keep you. A lot of these cards with the annual fee will have a customer service number that you can call and you can find out, hey, what can you do for me? In some cases, they will have something that, of course, it's not going to be a full sign-on offer, but it can actually still be a definite shock of cash or a shock of points, which would then mean that you would need to keep the card another year, but at least you get a heightened benefit, an accelerated benefit, without having to go out and do a lot more spending. Because mind you, sometimes a retention offer does require a spend requirement in order to hit it. Now, in some cases, Amex, they're known to do this. Hey, it might be 10,000, 20,000 points for $3,000 worth of spend, or $1,000 worth of spend. I'm just throwing out random numbers here. But also, don't forget, be strategic with the retention offers, because they may give you a few where one might be way better than the other one, but in the moment while you're trying to make a decision, you might lose track of which one is actually the most efficient use of your time and your spending and will grant you the greatest return. Now, here's something that I left out from the beginning, and that is downgrade paths. These are terms that you need to understand. A downgrade path is a card. Now we're talking about annual fees and retentions. Suppose they don't want to retain you. Suppose they can't do anything for you. One of the things that I found that makes a good mid-tier card isn't actually the card itself, but its downgrade path, just in case you need to step back, reset, maybe life changes. Maybe you want to go do something else with the money that you're paying that annual fee for that mid-tier card that maybe you just don't need anymore. So you definitely want to always look at a card that has a good downgrade path. For instance, you have the Delta Amex cards. There's a family of Amex cards. There's a Delta Blue. There is the SkyMiles Gold. There's a Delta SkyMiles Platinum and Delta SkyMiles Reserve. Now, their annual fees go up from the Blue to the Reserve. The Blue is 0. Then there's the Gold. Then there's a Platinum. Then there's a Reserve. The annual fees have been covered before, so I'm not going to go into them, but the fact of the matter is in that family, you can actually downgrade and downgrade and downgrade to the point where you have a 0 annual fee card, and you're still earning Delta Sky Miles because you're still in the card family. Same thing goes with Chase and their Sapphire products. You can actually go from a Reserve to a Preferred to a regular Sapphire card, which is great. And it's 0 annual fee. Doesn't get the benefits of the guys that you got to pay for, but it's still a no annual fee card that is a part of a downgrade path. A lot of cards have downgrade paths, and you definitely want to make sure that you have a decent downgrade path. Just in case you want to keep the card, you may want to upgrade again. They may give you a deal to upgrade again, but it's definitely something to keep in mind once you get to the mid-tier. Also, you want to keep in mind credits. Once you start paying annual fees for cards, chances are, and I'm really leaning towards a hard 100, is that they will offer credits that will offset the annual fee. For instance, the Chase Sapphire Preferred offers a $50 hotel credit if you book it through Chase Travel. Now, the card has a $95 annual fee, but once you book through that, you get a $50 credit, which essentially makes your effective annual fee $45. The Capital One Venture X has credits to the point that not only does the annual fee get canceled out, but at the end of the year, they're paying you $5 to keep the card. The Amex Platinum has so many credits, it's called a coupon book, and if you somehow magically, and I'd love to see if anybody does a video on that, please link me, let me know. I wish I could. If someone could possibly use every single credit that the Amex Platinum has to offer consistently year over year, not only would they cancel out the $695 fee, I think they actually cancel it out at a factor of over 2. So in other words, about $1,400 worth of credits, and the annual fee is $695. It's less than $700. So that is what credits are for. You definitely want to keep an eye out on what credits and what do these cards come with that sweeten the pot for you, that offset that, hey, I'm going to get this card within 30 days. They're going to charge me $100. Within 30 days, they're going to charge me $125. Now, what credits can I do to make that effectively zero? How can I be the one to claw that back from the credit card company? All right, now to the meat and potatoes of what a mid-tier card is for. And that is to strategize your spending categories. Now, I'm going to touch on about 5 spending categories that I am acquainted with. Now, these spending categories are, number one, they're common sense. 9 times out of 10, they're common sense, but also retailers will outline what they consider a quote-unquote spending category. So you definitely want to pay attention to that at the time of application to see if this mid-tier card is going to be for you. Once you get into the mid-tier, you have to pay attention to your spending categories. Now, the first one I'm going to list is the most important one, is because it's one that we all are affected by, and that's food. And under food, you will find grocery spend. That is a spending category. Under food is dining, takeout, dine-in, restaurants, US-based restaurants, international restaurants. So this is a whole encompassing one. Food is definitely big, and you will find the vast majority of cards will actually offer some sort of food-based category that will give you a return on dollar spend. You have to discern which one you're going to choose. Some are better than others. Some are just flat out terrible. It's definitely up to you. Your catch-alls, you can use those for food as well, but you definitely want something specific with food, because let's just face it, you tend to eat every day. So a lot of times, good mid-tier card is going to have a decent spend category on some sort of food. And that's normally going to be minimum about 3% back, whether it be for groceries or dining or some sort of specific category that the card company itself will outlay. Now, to round out that category, here's something that you're going to have to understand, and specifically with the grocery category. A lot of people get confused as to which places code as grocery stores. A lot of people shop at Walmart, Super Walmart. They shop at Super Target. They shop at, I believe it's Fred Meyer, or there's another store that is escaping me now, and I wish I could remember it, but these are stores that aren't actually supermarkets because they sell everything under the sun. Essentially, what you're always going to want to remember is that a supermarket primarily sells food, has a standalone pharmacy in some cases, and also has a standalone deli and/or bakery. If you keep that in mind, you'll understand why when you spent $200 worth of food at Walmart, it didn't code with your 3X the same way it did when you spent the same amount of money at the Walmart neighborhood store, which actually codes as a supermarket because it has those 3 things. 9 times out of 10, I don't care who you are, your credit card issuer is not going to give you a multiplier if you say you went to the supermarket and you turn up with a shirt and a set of tires. That's just not how it works. And they're not going to draw any clear lines. Oh, well, if you buy a bag of chips, it'll code differently. They're just going to go by the retailer. And you have to remember with supermarkets, this part is important because a lot of people, they end up doing this not realizing that they're not actually maximizing their return on their spend. So remember that with groceries. Just want to add that in. One of my second major categories you're going to want to look for, especially today, especially right now, is gas. Now, gas normally includes any gas station, a company that is primarily or a subsidiary of an energy company that is known for selling fuel products. Shell, Mobil, Exxon, BP, Circle K. And here's the thing. A lot of these gas companies actually are convenience stores as well. So your convenience store purchases will actually code as gas purchases. I was just recently in Key West. I actually walked down the street from my hotel. I went to a Circle K that did not have a gas pump in sight. And on my American Express Blue Cash Preferred, it coded as a gasoline purchase because I was in a convenience store run by a company that primarily provides gas. Now, here's a caveat to that. Once again, where I live, a lot of people, they go to Sam's Club, they'll go to the super clubs in order to get their gasoline because they tend to have the lowest prices. You definitely want to make sure that at these gas stations, what is the name of the company that's running the gas station? Because if you go to a Sam's Club gas station, I've heard this before, that Sam's Club gas doesn't code as a gas station. It codes as a wholesale retailer purchase. So you're actually kind of cheating yourself here. You have to double check and make sure, see if your return on your gas beats out the discount that you get by going to one of these Super Club gas stations, or you can actually specifically get their store card so that you can make sure you maximize your return. So keeping in things that people are going to do more often than not, we're going to go with e-commerce, online retailers. A lot of cards will have credits for online retailers, and they will do so in the name of straight up online retailers. Like I mentioned before, they'll just say your Amazon purchases because Amazon covers almost everything, including groceries. Also, now with a lot of people cutting the cord, there's a proliferation of streaming services. And those are online retailers as well. Your Netflix, your Peacock, Hulu, Disney Plus. Think of that stuff as e-commerce. Some of your mid-tier cards are going to offer that as a sweetener because it's not as common as a food multiplier because everyone eats every day, but not everyone has streaming services. But a lot of people depend on streaming services because instead of people crowding around a TV, 9 times out of 10, most people watch a lot of their TV right on their phone. Just like you're probably watching this YouTube video, they pretty much watch mostly everything on their phone, on their iPads, and that's where the streaming services come in. And then also you have the rest of your online retailers. Period. Like there's online grocery, Shipt, Instacart. You have online food delivery, Grubhub, Uber Eats. So there is the online e-commerce space is so huge. Of course, they're going to offer multipliers for that to keep people coming back, period. You also want to stack that with any online shopping portal. My favorite's Rakuten. No, I'm not sponsored by them, but I drop it in there because you earn MR points. And, that's a story for a whole other day. But I just wanted to drop that in there because I just can't help but mention it because I've gotten a lot of points from there. But online retailing has really come through and helped a lot of people out. Some people who couldn't get out, now the world comes to them. But your mid-tier cards are going to offer things. This is a major category as well. So we are going to move on to the next one. This one is travel. Not everybody's a big traveler, but under travel, I would consider things like transit, Uber, Lyft. Sharing has become the thing of the 21st century. You can ride share with Uber, Lyft, and now you can even share a domicile like Airbnb. You have cards with multipliers for Airbnb under travel. You have Vrbo, which is also another version of that. You have the legacy hotel providers. And with travel, all sorts of things can come into that, like hotels, air travel. Train travel is actually big. Not here in the US, obviously. It's not as big as air travel is. But remember, if you ever make it across to Europe, you go to Asia, train travel's still pretty big there. They have high-speed trains that, from what I hear, are fantastic, and that's how a lot of stuff is done, because they're not hopping and jumping and skipping. Some of those countries are only as big as 2 or 3 states, and it's easier for them to just hop in a train and go. Even from mainland Europe over to the British Isles, most of the time that's via train. So you have to think about travel in which terms am I doing this? You have your like we have like the Easy Pass, the turnpike passes, toll roads, all of that falls under travel. So depending on what your lifestyle dictates and depending on what your lifestyle needs, you may need a mid-tier card that has a travel credit to offset costs. You take a lot of road trips, you have a long commute, you may not even take road trips. In some cases, you might work an hour away from work, and make sure you start throwing in some return on that spend. And yeah, it's not earth-shattering, but at least you're getting some money back and it's easing you up a little bit off something that you have to pay anyway. So that's travel. That includes transit, once again, lodging, any sort of high-powered travel. I mean, you would think that gas would be up, but gas is totally separate. This is literally not what you need to go, but where are you going and how are you getting there? So remember, check your mid-tier cards, and if you need it, travel is definitely something you want to look at. Now, without going too crazy or going too long, I'm actually going to ball up the last one in non-category spend. Now, in your whole life, you're not just going to eat, drive, pump gas, and click on Amazon. You're going to do other stuff. And other stuff requires spend as well. For instance, I just put my 2 little ones in daycare. What's the category for that? You know what I mean? Most issuers don't have a child care. I mean, I'm sure there are some niche ones who do, but for the most part, you're not going to get that. So that is what would be categorized under uncategorized spend. There are going to be things that you're going to buy that's not really going to comfortably fit in any sort of category. But even with some of the mid-tier cards, they will have decent multipliers for uncategorized spend. So you'll get something that will have X amount back for gas, X amount back for restaurants, and 1.5% back for everything else. That everything else, that moniker, that everything else, is your uncategorized spend. So we normally tend to want to use our catch-all cards for that, but also some mid-tier cards definitely do have decent multipliers, so you definitely want to keep an eye out for that as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel here, and this is a little longer than I intended, but these things are important because you don't want to have somebody pushing you into a mid-tier card or telling you to get a mid-tier card or maybe even referring you to one without being armed with understanding some of the things that come with it, some of the things that you may have to look out for, and some of the things that you have to keep in mind. These are things that can scare somebody off, can, in the worst case scenario, cause somebody to overspend or spend needlessly to satisfy some urge that they have now because it's a rush, it's exciting. And it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I get a card and I do a sign-on bonus, I love it. I love seeing the huge influx of points. But you definitely want to be armed with some of this knowledge. And don't get me wrong, this is not an A to Z. I'm sure there are even people watching this who have other things that they can input. Please feel free to do so down there in the comments. I always welcome it. And there may even be things that I miss. I'm just telling you based on my experiences, what it is that you can expect from a solid mid-tier card and things you need to keep in mind, because what may be solid for you might not be solid for me. Also, don't forget that a part of this has to fit into your daily structure. This has to fit into your habits. So don't be influenced by someone who tells you what you should and how you should spend, because in some cases their situation may not work for you. But that is about it for hints, tricks, tips before you get into the mid-tier cards. So hopefully by now you have 1 or 2 beginner cards. You've gotten the feel, or you've convinced somebody to get the feel of getting rewards. And now we can start stepping up to where a little strategy is involved, where it really gets fun in order to maximize every dollar that you spend. Now you're going to start building up points balances. And as an aside, just to let you know, by the time you hit the mid-tier, there are cashback mid-tier cards, but for the most part, they're actually going to earn the points. That's going to be the majority. I told you about this earlier, but the majority of them are going to earn points that can be used for cash back, but we're actually going to start looking into transfers, and that's even beyond mid-tier into the top tier cards. But really, your mid-tier, they're going to be your workhorses. Chances are, a lot of the times, your mid-tier are going to earn you the most points, period. More so than the catch-all, more so than the pro cards, because they're going to cover more things in your life. But I'm not going to keep you guys any more longer. I just wanted to get that out there for you. I just want you to be prepared for when I offer my list of intermediate cards or mid-tier cards for beginners. Well, there won't be beginners by then, but definitely it'll give you a path on some of my favorite mid-tier cards that will help you out. And, we'll start talking and building into things like trifectas and other strategies that you can use to maximize your cash back or maximize your points. But that is it. And until next time, thank you so much for joining. If you made it all the way to the end, kudos to you, because I don't know how I made it to the end, and I'm the one talking. So until next time, I'll catch you later.